Yes. Thank you, Gintare, and greetings to all friends in London from Brussels. And indeed, after these very, very sharp and very, I would say, spot on words of Edward Lucas, there's very difficult to add anything. That very clear analysis and diagnosis where we as Western community have been and what we have done wrong in the last, I would say, decades, whilst dealing with the great threat of Putin and Putin's regime, which clearly today is the biggest single long-term security threat for Europe. And let us be clear that the future of democratic Europe is not only being defended, but is also being decided on Ukrainian soil. And therefore, the way we react collectively as Europeans, as international community, in my mind, will define not only our character, but also our future. And therefore, it's really critical days and weeks and months that also will define the future of this continent. Of course, whilst looking at the response so far, on which I would like to concentrate, we've done a lot, but we can do definitely much more. As Edward was very correctly saying, that we should go much further, much deeper, in a much more ambitious way. If you look at the response to Putin and Russia, of course, the majority of our response to case was devoted to sanctions. And there, indeed, one has to admit that we have unprecedented coordination between the European Union, between the United States, UK, Australia, Canada, and many other international players. And we had a lot of very swift and quick decisions, which we haven't seen in the past. So there, of course, we were tested through the sanctions methodology, but overall, I would say we could see that it was done in a rather effective way. Of course, the way the European Union sanctions were constructed, the 4 packages, they were constructed in order to really minimize the cost for Europeans, maximize the costs for Russia, and to be sustainable in time, so that they are sustainable and have a long-term effect. We've hit the financial sector with financial sanctions, not only by freezing the asset freeze, of the Russian central bank, 300 billion euros, and this was probably the single most important measure, which had an immediate effect on Russia's economy and capital markets. We of course also de-SWIFTed 7 Russian banks and 3 Belarusian banks, but this is only the beginning. There's much more we can do, especially the banking sector, as the 2 most important banks, Sberbank and Gazprombank, remain not yet de-SWIFTed, and we Lithuanians, and not only us, but a lot of like-minded countries, are pushing our partners to have courage to move further with other banks. We have also hit the industrial and military base, really hitting the ability of Russia to not only to manufacture, but also to renew its military equipment. We have also the technology sector in order to deprive Russia from ability to modernize itself, especially, of course, in military field. We have also hit the elites. Now the list of those sanctions in terms of visa ban and asset freeze has reached nearly 900 people, politicians, oligarchs, closest people to Putin himself, and Lavrov himself. But there again, we need to move forward and to ever increase that list. And we have also, for the first time in the European Union history, indeed, attacked through sanctions the Russian disinformation channels, Russia Today and Sputnik, that have been sanctioned. Indeed, that's a very important decision. But again, we have to go further, as there are many other Russian television channels which remain not sanctioned and still on air. We have also hit quite a few sectors, sectorial sanctions that have affected aviation. Of course, the whole airspace of Europe is closed to Russian planes. Steel and iron sanctions, which hit in just a few weeks ago, dual technology, etc. International isolation has been a very important part of response, freezing Russia's participation, membership in many international organizations, cultural and sports events, but there again, we still need to go forward, especially to make sure Russia cannot sit anymore on the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, or indeed host the UNESCO General Assembly in Kazan, Russia, later this spring. International justice will be a long-term response, which is very important for us, and Lithuania has been among the member states raising this question, appealing to the International Criminal Court and ICJ to start the investigation into war crimes, into crimes against humanity, into really gross violations of international justice and international law. And here, of course, we will need international community together for a long haul to make sure that these crimes do not remain unpunished, and that the international institutions are able to proceed with those investigations. But it's not only about Russia's isolation and punishment, which of course is very important in terms of drying out the finances that Putin has to finance his war in Ukraine. What is also important is also, and not less important, I would say even more important, is support for Ukraine. And we've been really spending all of those days and weeks here in Brussels trying to push for more support for Ukraine. Of course, first of all, in terms of military support, and you know that European Union for the first time has decided to send lethal aid to a partner country through the help of European Peace Facility. And now through two decisions, we have 1 billion euros available for that. And this is being done through member states, through their deliveries. Secondly, financial support for Ukraine's states for its economy, 1.2 billion euros of macro financial assistance, but much more will be needed. This is only the beginning. Humanitarian support and support for refugees is of key importance now with the 4 million refugees who have entered the European Union, where the temporary protection directive has helped them to temporarily for 1 year and later maybe more or longer to stay in any European Union member state. And we have seen incredible level of solidarity of people and citizens, and not only in Lithuania and in Poland, but in many other countries, welcoming Ukrainians to their homes, trying to help them to resettle, and for that also European Commission has gathered 3.4 billion euro funds from different corners. But again, much more will be needed in the long run to deal with the humanitarian consequences of this extremely brutal and inhumane war. We should also think about long-term reconstruction of Ukraine, and we should start doing that now. And in the European Council last week, there was a decision made by European leaders to establish the so-called Ukrainian Solidarity Fund, which will be devoted specifically and exactly to the long-term reconstruction. And I would say we'll have to be creative and flexible here in the European Union, how to really raise money and make sure that Ukraine does receive similar support like Marshall Fund in Europe after the World War II. And here, Europe will not be enough. We'll need common efforts with the United States, with G7 countries, with the United Kingdom, because this will be massive undertaking, not least making sure that Russia also pays its part as an aggressor and responsible for all the damage done, to the civilians, to the infrastructure, to the whole country. And finally, and also extremely importantly, our support to Ukraine should manifest by our much more pronounced, ambitious, and bold answer to Ukraine's application for the European Union membership. And here, Lithuania is one of the leading nations in the EU, reminding day and night, 24/7, everyone here in the city, that we should move really swiftly on this, that the European Commission should work very hard on its opinion on the candidate status, and that really the process, which already has started, should move on, and that we should be able to tell Ukrainians that they are welcome in the European family, that they belong to the European Union in the future, and that we will do everything possible to help them on this way, especially knowing that in the times of war, it is indeed very difficult, to meet all of the usual procedures, usual requirements. So this is quite a big agenda, very important one, but something that I think we have no other choice but to devote all of our energies and all of our attention. And we should really fight not only sanctions fatigue, but also what I would call the war fatigue. Sometimes we already feel in certain capitals across Europe, only 1 month after the start of the war. If Ukrainians are not, feeling fatigue on the battlefield and are every single day and night and every hour defending not only their country, but all of our freedom and security, so we do also have no privilege to get fatigued. We should carry on and continue in everything we can, individually and collectively, to support Ukraine. Thank you.